If you believe in God, or if you are a creationist, put this book down now. This is not the time for debate. What you are about to embark on will change your life forever. Open your mind this instant. We have no time to waste. Listen carefully. You are staring at the night sky as the Milky Way galaxy passes silently above you. Standing there like a microscopic speck of dust on a beach ball in space, you think to yourself, what lies beyond the visible universe that you see? Your feet leave the ground and you become weightless. You start traveling faster and faster away from the comfort of home. You have now traveled beyond the Milky Way and you enter the void of deep space. The edge of the observable universe stretches 13 billion light-years ahead of you, and you cannot see what incredible secrets lie beyond. However, the edge of the observable is only the beginning. Civilizations bound by the physics of light, space, and time cannot change the continuous expansion of our universe, and the unimaginable worlds beyond that mankind can only dream of discovering. Our galactic neighbors have acquired the skills and knowledge to explore distant galaxies, but even for them, fact can sometimes be stranger than fiction. Out in deep space, like a sailor floating in a life raft at sea, you use your telescope to scan in every direction. The stars around you whiz past quicker and quicker, and still the observable universe remains the same. Are you lost? Are you drifting closer to home or further away from it? You can no longer tell, but you keep going farther, deeper, faster in the same direction. Theorists believe the universe to be 180 billion light-years in diameter. Eventually, you reach the outer limits. Then what? Did you find the answers you were looking for on this journey of discovery, or do you have only more questions to ask? Light speed is the distance covered if you traveled at the speed of light for 1 year, the time measurement for space travel. We see stars that no longer exist because the light has kept moving towards us until the photon particles impact with the back of our eyes. Does that mean we have traveled back in time? No. Time can only move forward. But what if I told you we are already traveling back in time to the beginning? Am I in the past, present, or future? God damn it. I cannot answer that for you, but there is a place beyond the observable, a time and space outside the confines of our universe. Wherever you are right now, you will not find a place further away. They come from there, them, those who do not need physical form or an atmosphere to breathe. They are the ones from beyond, powerful entities who have been around since the beginning of time itself. Now they want back what they believe is rightfully theirs, a physical form for which they were denied. They have no choice but to coexist with the galactic community or remain an inert ball of energy. So they trade. They trade off energy for any physical form they can find. Quite often, one of these entities will land upon a forgotten world and will turn it upside down for the poor, unsuspecting victims of an innocent civilization going about its business. Sometimes the entities work hard to preserve and even prove their worth. The question is, which one will land on your world? It was a beautiful day, and Kyle and Margaret were out enjoying the sunshine, blissfully unaware that their lives were about to change forever. Suddenly, a bright light appeared on the horizon, and they knew something was terribly wrong. They didn't know what it was, but they both understood that their time together was coming to an end. Holding each other tightly as the blast consumed them, they felt a strange peace in knowing this was their final moment together. Standing on the back porch of their house with their baby son, the wind picked up speed quickly and soon howled like a freight train. Kyle struggled to keep Margaret on her feet against the gale-force wind, but it was too strong. The ground shook, and roses from Margaret's prized flower bed were ripped from the soil, their petals flying past their heads. The air filled with debris, plants, trees, cars, power poles, and even buildings, including their own house. Anything not strong enough to resist the hurricane-strength wind became airborne. Somehow, Kyle managed to stay on his feet for a moment, keeping his family in a firm embrace. "I love you," were the last words Kyle said to his wife as he gazed into her heartbroken eyes. Margaret stared back helplessly as Kyle gasped his last breath. For him, the nightmare was over. For others, it was just beginning. Margaret soon also inhaled her last breath as she squeezed her beloved husband tightly. Nestled between them, their newborn child remained blissfully unaware of the impending doom. He looked up at his parents for the last time, and in a split second, everything turned a blinding bright white as husband and wife desperately tried to shield the baby from the intense light as best they could. This was the beginning of the end of the world as anyone had known it. During those final seconds, the baby inquisitively gazed up into the blue sky, watching as an eagle flew into view and circled majestically above them. Its wings filled the sky and cast a shadow over the trio on the ground like a feathered angel. The eagle flew effortlessly through the air, its eyes staring back at the baby, overwhelmed by its striking grace and beauty. The baby felt a sense of comfort, a safe feeling that would never be repeated again. The eagle continued its hypnotizing display, causing the infant to laugh, while tears seeped from his parents' eyes. Kyle couldn't help but think about how beautiful it all looked, while trying to block out the awful truth about the horrendous chain of events that had led to their situation. His last feeling was one of overwhelming sadness and remorse for not being able to save his family. The space soon filled with every object imaginable: plants, trees, cars, power poles, followed by buildings, including their own house. Anything not strong enough to resist the barbaric strength of the wind turned into a projectile. Somehow, Kyle managed to stay on his feet for a second while keeping his family in a firm embrace. He noticed a tall pine tree in the distance, straining to stay upright, as energy more powerful than the sun was released upon them. The atoms split at the speed of light, triggering a chain reaction that sounded like God himself, summoning Satan from the depths of hell. The effortless destruction was the result of the RS-28 Sarmat, also known as Satan II by NATO, Russia's most powerful intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM for short. With a yield reaching up to 10 megatons or more, the RS-28 Sarmat is notable for its long range, advanced countermeasures against missile defenses, and its ability to deliver devastating payloads across the globe, making it one of the most formidable weapons in Russia's arsenal. At its head, the missile carried a 10-megaton thermonuclear warhead that detonated 1,000 feet above the target of Auckland, the only New Zealand city to receive such a large explosion. Conditions hotter than the surface of the sun radiated in all directions as the blast wave pushed millions of tons of air out of the way to make room for the expanding inferno. Faster than the speed of sound, the energy released was so powerful that everything within a 40-mile radius of ground zero vanished within just a few seconds. Winded, having all the air sucked out of his lungs, Kyle took one last look at his wife before they both closed their eyes for the last time. They stood there holding on to one another, tighter than they ever thought possible. The heat wave struck with unimaginable violence, climaxing to a blinding white light brighter than the sun and vaporizing everything in its path. The baby had been shielded by its parents, fell to the ground, and was partially covered by debris. Now, without any living soul to keep it safe, it watched helplessly as the eagle vaporized into ashes, as the blue sky gave way to thundering fire and wind. Earlier that day, 7,000 miles away in the continental U.S. at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, lay a fortified military base buried deep beneath the earth. Buried beneath the surface, deep inside of it, sat a Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missile. This long-range missile was designed to deliver nuclear warheads over intercontinental distances. It featured a 3-stage solid-fuel rocket system, enabling it to travel thousands of miles with high accuracy. The missile was approximately 60 feet long and 5.5 feet in diameter, housed in underground silos for protection and concealment. The blast effects of a Minuteman nuclear warhead were catastrophic, involving a massive fireball that incinerated everything within several kilometers. A powerful shock wave that could flatten buildings and infrastructure over a wider area, and intense thermal radiation causing severe burns and igniting widespread fires. The explosion released lethal ionizing radiation, causing acute radiation sickness in the immediate vicinity, while radioactive fallout spread, contaminating the environment and posing long-term health risks. Additionally, a high-altitude explosion could generate an electromagnetic pulse, EMP, that disrupted or destroyed electronic systems over a vast area, crippling communications and power grids. Encased in its silo, it lay dormant, a silent sentinel of doom. The command center above buzzed with a tense electric energy as officers monitored screens and issued commands in clipped, precise tones. The order came down through the chain of command, a chilling directive from leaders who had weighed the direst of consequences and found them necessary. The launch codes were verified, and the sequence began. The missile, a sleek cylindrical behemoth, stirred to life within its steel confines. The blast doors atop the silo slid open with a mechanical groan, exposing the missile to the open sky. For a moment, it stood poised at the edge of its journey, the blue expanse above a stark contrast to the cold mechanical reality below. The countdown commenced, each second a heartbeat echoing through the command center. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. With a roar that shook the earth, the Minuteman missile's engines ignited, and a plume of fire and smoke erupted from its base. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed, the missile ascended, lifting away from the confines of its silo. It moved with a grace that belied its deadly purpose, slicing through the air with a precision born of meticulous design and engineering. Higher and higher it climbed, breaking through the atmosphere, the sky turning from blue to the deep, endless black of space. The missile's guidance systems activated, adjusting its trajectory with minute corrections, ensuring it stayed on its deadly path. Below, the world shrank away, a beautiful, fragile sphere, blissfully unaware of the devastation hurtling through the void. As the missile reached the apex of its flight, the warhead detached, a deadly payload now guided by its own navigation systems. The Minuteman missile, having completed its launch phase, fell away, its purpose fulfilled. The warhead, encased in heat-resistant materials, began its descent, re-entering the atmosphere with a fiery blaze. Below, the target country lay peaceful and unprepared, its cities bustling with life, its people going about their daily routines. They were unaware of the impending doom, streaking towards them at unimaginable speeds. The warhead, a harbinger of destruction, descended with unerring precision. In its final moments, the missile's descent slowed, the sophisticated guidance systems ensuring it struck its target with pinpoint accuracy. The silence of the peaceful day was shattered in an instant as the warhead detonated. A blinding flash of light, hotter than the sun, erupted, followed by a shock wave that flattened buildings and vaporized everything in its path. The once vibrant cities that multiple missiles targeted were reduced to rubble and ash, a testament to the destructive power of human ingenuity. The sky above, once clear and blue, was now a roiling mass of smoke and fire. The echoes of the explosions reverberated through the earth, a grim reminder of the terrible cost of war. In the command center, the screens flickered with images of the aftermath. The officers watched in silence, the weight of their actions hanging heavy in the air. The mission was complete, the target destroyed, but the consequences would ripple through time, a haunting legacy of destruction. But how did we get here? How did all this start? The story began in the bustling corridors of Washington, D.C. power brokers and politicians moved like shadows, their intentions obscured by the facade of public service. Among them was President Conrad Stone, a man whose rise to power had been meteoric and whose tenure was marked by controversy and scandal. Stone, an old, withered man with a heart as black as coal, had milked the United States and its citizens of everything, leaving a trail of corruption and greed in his wake. The story began in the aftermath of a minor conflict in a distant part of the world. As tensions escalated, Stone saw an opportunity. He convened a secret meeting with the heads of major defense contractors, companies that built everything from fighter jets to advanced surveillance systems. Among them was Orion Defense Systems, led by the enigmatic billionaire Victor Harrington. "Gentlemen," Stone began, his voice gravelly and menacing, "we have an opportunity to reshape the world and to make a lot of money in the process." Stone proposed a plan. The government would allocate enormous defense budgets for new weapons systems, ostensibly to ensure national security. However, a significant portion of these funds would be diverted through a series of complex financial transactions, ultimately enriching both Stone and his allies. The scheme was as brilliant as it was insidious. First, Stone used his political clout to push for heightened military spending. He delivered impassioned speeches about the imminent threat posed by rogue nations and the need for advanced defense capabilities. The media, ever hungry for sensational stories, amplified his message, creating a climate of fear and urgency. With public support secured, Stone introduced a bill to increase the defense budget by billions of dollars. The bill passed with overwhelming support, thanks to Stone's persuasive skills and the strategic placement of bribes. Defense contracts were awarded to Orion Defense Systems and other companies, ostensibly for the development of cutting-edge technology. But the money did not stay within these companies for long. Through a labyrinth of shell companies and offshore accounts, funds were funneled out of the United States, laundered, and then discreetly returned to the politicians and executives involved in the scheme. Harrington, with his expertise in financial engineering, ensured that every transaction was untraceable. Stone's personal wealth grew exponentially. He purchased luxurious properties, private jets, and extravagant art collections, all while maintaining his public persona as a dedicated servant of the people. His influence expanded, and he became a kingmaker in Washington, able to make or break careers with a single endorsement. The scheme continued for years, unnoticed by the public and law enforcement. Stone and Harrington's network grew, encompassing more politicians, military officials, and corporate executives. The military-industrial complex became a money-laundering machine, churning out profits for those willing to compromise their integrity. But Stone's ambition knew no bounds. He sought absolute control, and to achieve it, he needed more than just financial power. In secret meetings, far from the prying eyes of the public and the press, Stone devised an even darker plan with Harrington and a select group of trusted allies. In clandestine laboratories hidden in the remote corners of China and Ukraine, scientists worked under the cover of darkness. These secret labs were funded by the same labyrinthine network that laundered the defense contracts. Here, Stone's true vision took shape, the development of deadly viruses engineered to unleash chaos and fear across the globe. The goal was sinisterly simple: to release these viruses in targeted regions, creating a global pandemic that would force nations into submission. With the world in disarray, Stone could impose draconian measures, tightening his grip on power while presenting himself as the savior with the cure. The first virus was a masterpiece of bioengineering, a blend of lethal efficiency and high contagion. Stone watched as the scientists in the Chinese lab, led by Dr. Wei Jiang, perfected the virus. Dr. Jiang, a brilliant but morally ambiguous virologist, had been lured into the project with promises of unlimited funding and the chance to push the boundaries of scientific achievement. In Ukraine, another team worked on a secondary virus designed to follow the first. This virus would be less deadly but more persistent, ensuring that the global population remained in a state of perpetual fear and dependency. The Ukrainian lab, hidden in the Carpathian Mountains, was led by Dr. Olena Petrova, whose loyalty to Stone was bought with threats and promises of power. The release of the first virus was meticulously planned. Stone and Harrington orchestrated a series of events that would lead to the outbreak. In the densely populated cities of Asia and Europe, the virus spread rapidly, overwhelming healthcare systems and causing widespread panic and shortages of toilet paper. Stone appeared on television screens worldwide, offering support and resources, all the while leveraging his newfound control. As the pandemic worsened, Stone's grip tightened. Martial law was declared in many countries, with military forces enforcing curfews and travel bans. The president's face became a constant presence, his decrepit features now synonymous with authority and control. The public, desperate for a solution, turned to him in their fear and confusion. Behind the scenes, the money continued to flow. Stone and his allies profited immensely from the chaos, selling medical supplies, vaccines, and other essentials at exorbitant prices. The military-industrial complex, now expanded to include the pharmaceutical and biotech industries, became a juggernaut of corruption and greed. But Stone's insatiable lust for power led him to make increasingly reckless decisions. As global tensions escalated, Stone saw an opportunity to divert attention from his crimes and cement his control. He manipulated NATO, turning the alliance into an instrument of his will. NATO's leaders, corrupted by Stone's influence and promises of wealth, played their part as bad actors on the world stage. Stone orchestrated a series of provocations, using NATO forces to incite conflicts in strategic regions. He fed misinformation and fabricated threats, stoking fears of a global conspiracy. Nations around the world were pushed to the brink, their leaders manipulated into a state of perpetual paranoia. In a final desperate move to cover up his crimes and consolidate his power, Stone orchestrated the ultimate act of deception. He fabricated intelligence reports that implicated Russia and China in a massive, coordinated attack on NATO countries. The world, already teetering on the edge of chaos, was plunged into outright hysteria. NATO, under Stone's control, launched a preemptive strike against Russia and China. The response was swift and brutal. Nuclear missiles were launched from silos, submarines, and aircraft, hurtling toward their targets with deadly precision. The skies lit up with the apocalyptic glow of nuclear fire. The world was thrust into World War III, a conflict of unimaginable scale and destruction. Every nation with nuclear capabilities unleashed their arsenals, targeting each other in a frenzied bid for survival. Cities were reduced to ashes, and entire populations were annihilated in the blink of an eye. Stone, hidden in a fortified bunker deep beneath the White House, watched the destruction unfold on a wall of monitors. He had succeeded in creating a world of chaos, but his victory was hollow. The price of his ambition was the end of civilization as he knew it. In the end, Stone's reign of terror and deceit brought about the very destruction he had sought to control. The world lay in ruins, a testament to the corrupting influence of power and the lengths to which one man would go to preserve his legacy. The few survivors, scattered and broken, were left to rebuild from the ashes of a world ravaged by war and disease. In the bleak aftermath of a global nuclear war, a few scattered survivors clung to life, trying to make sense of a world that had been irrevocably altered. The once vibrant and thriving planet was now shrouded in a harsh nuclear winter, a thick, dark cloud hanging over it like a suffocating blanket. The smog, heavy with radiation, had disastrous effects on anyone unfortunate enough to breathe it in, leading to mutations and death, particularly in the heavily bombarded regions of the Northern Hemisphere. From east to west, the Northern Hemisphere was a wasteland of death and destruction. Cities lay in ruins, and the land was scarred by the impact points of countless nuclear weapons. The devastation was near total, leaving little hope for those who had once called these places home. However, in the southern regions of the world, life endured, albeit in a drastically altered form. South of the equator, the Pacific Ocean had largely been spared the violent eruptions that decimated the north. Remote islands such as Fiji, Tonga, and Vanuatu, due to their geographical remoteness and political insignificance, had escaped direct hits. Nevertheless, they were not immune to the fallout. Without substantial land masses to shield them, these islands were reduced to barren wastelands, unable to sustain the life they once nurtured. Yet there was one group of islands that managed to hold on to life by a fragile thread. New Zealand, a geological arc in the southernmost reaches of the Pacific, had endured the cataclysm with remarkable resilience. The once lush and green landscape of New Zealand had suffered multiple nuclear strikes from north to south. However, these were smaller tactical nukes launched from submarines and were focused on the three major cities, Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch. The remainder of the country remained relatively unscathed, providing a rare sanctuary in a world ravaged by nuclear fire and fallout. New Zealand became a beacon of hope in the southern hemisphere. The survivors, however, faced immense challenges, but their determination to rebuild and sustain life set them apart in this new, dark world. The country's isolation and lower levels of cross-contamination from other countries allowed communities to regroup and adapt to the harsh, new reality. In the months following the war, these survivors lived as best they could. They scavenged for food and supplies, often finding refuge in the ruins of what once were bustling towns and cities. The nuclear winter had transformed the landscape into a desolate and unforgiving place, but the spirit of the New Zealanders remained unbroken. One such group of survivors had taken refuge in the outskirts of Wellington. Led by a resilient woman named Mara, they had managed to create a small, self-sustaining community. Mara, a former scientist, used her knowledge to purify water and grow food in makeshift greenhouses. The community thrived under her leadership, despite the omnipresent threats of radiation and scarcity. Each day was a struggle, but it was the children who gave them hope. In the midst of the chaos, their laughter echoed through the broken streets, a poignant reminder of what they were fighting for. The community rallied around them, their innocence a stark contrast to the harsh world outside. To the south, in the relatively untouched region of Otago, another group of survivors found solace in the ancient caves that dotted the landscape. These caves, once a tourist attraction, now served as their sanctuary. Led by Tane, a Maori elder with a deep connection to the land, they lived off the grid, relying on traditional knowledge to hunt and gather. Tane's wisdom and spiritual guidance were instrumental in keeping the group unified and focused on survival. That brings us to the end of this chapter, but in the words of Winston Churchill, this is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end, but it is, perhaps, the end of the beginning. Stay tuned for the next exciting chapter of the Tribes of the Apocalypse, when we reveal our heroes and pull back the curtains on the villains. Until then, please like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on the latest installment.